So today we're going to talk about publishing. Um, I'm 9 books into a pretty successful run as a novelist, which includes awards, New York Times bestsellers, film adaptations, and options. A banned book that won't stop selling 7 years after its release. But here I find myself at a publishing crossroads. For a little context, I began my career with All About Lulu at Soft Skull, a fiercely independent publisher, which is essentially run back then out of a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. Along with my brilliant editor, Richard Nash, and a publicist who had zero experience, just came out of real estate school or something, we managed to sell 20,000 copies of All About Lulu in trade paperback, which made it an indie sensation. And that also put me in a great position for my second book, West of Here. That book went to auction where 5 publishers bid on it. And this presented the first big decision of my career. Did I take the highest offer from the huge corporate publisher? In fact, there were several higher offers. Or did I take the lower offer from Algonquin Books at Chapel Hill, an independent with a ton of literary cachet and, having published some of my favorite authors, Larry Brown among them, um, but that had a lot of muscle. They had the muscle and the savvy to play with the big boys. So Algonquin was gaga for the book, and I could really feel their enthusiasm. They had a plan for West of Here, and I loved my conversations with them. So I went with my gut, and I chose Algonquin over 4 major corporate publishers. As it turned out, it was a great decision. Though I did take a smaller advance up front, the royalties from that book more than made up for it and basically bought my dream house. I went on to publish 4 more novels with Algonquin before they were ultimately bought up by Hachette, who was a giant corporate conglomerate, at which point I flew the coop. So my experience at Algonquin over the decade was amazing. They were like family. They helped me help myself, I guess you'd say. The process was always transparent. I was involved in nearly every decision. I learned so much from Chuck Adams and Craig Poplars and Michael Takins and Curtis Lowe and Peter Workman and Kathy Porras, the whole team at Algonquin. The fact that I still remember them all by name sort of illustrates my point. After the dissolution of Algonquin, however, I ended up at Penguin Random House, who is the largest publisher in the world. I'm at the Dutton imprint, where I stayed for 3 books. My contract is now up, where my experience was quite different. And we'll talk about some of those differences later. The crossroads I alluded to at the opening is whether now, with my next book, Wednesday Night Lights, do I want to go back to my indie roots where I have more control over the process, or stay in a corporate publishing where I'll draw a much larger advance. There's advantages to both, and there's a myriad of considerations here, artistic and financial. We'll get to some of those a little later. Today, we're going to talk about how the sausage is made. We're going to demystify the publishing process for anybody out there who dreams of publishing a book or just anyone who's interested in how the industry operates. We're going to walk through the process from acquisition to production to publicity and marketing to distribution, all the way to the bookstore floor, where my own journey began 40 years ago at Printers Inc. My conversation partner today is Christoph Paul, a publisher at the fiercely independent Clash Books, a publisher of really fucking weird books in a sort of bizarro realm, including the forthcoming Meat Bees, which is sort of like Jaws with killer bees. I thought Christoph, he's been on my radar for a while. I thought Christoph would be a perfect conversation partner because as the publisher at Clash, he wears all the hats. And he can offer us the inside glimpse of operations at an indie press. And conversely, I can offer insights into the mega corporate side of things, along with my, considerable experience with independent publishers. So it's kind of a indie versus corporate paradigm here. So please welcome this week's Fresh Fish in Hell, Christoph Paul.
Hey everybody, thank you for having me, Jonathan. I'm excited to do that. I mean, I love talking this stuff, I actually like talking about the sausage and how it's made. I think too many writers don't even think about this stuff and it bites them in the ass. And, I think you got to know what you're getting into. And I'm also, it's funny, I'm a writer as well, and I'm on the other side. I'm actually on submission right now with mostly corporate publishers. So it's interesting.
Go back.
I know.
No,
we'll see though. We'll see. I have
see.
I have some indies that are on there too, and it's interesting. It's interesting to be on. I always say Clash is like in that weird middle space in between the micro press world and the corporate publishing. And I like being in the middle. I actually enjoy it. We'll see what happens to me as a writer because
Well, you've been on my radar for a couple years now. I always keep an eye on the indie publishing world. I've just been really impressed by your commitment, your passion, your savvy, your
Thank you.
enthusiasm, and I feel your authors are damn lucky to have you. Plus, you're just one of the cool kids. And one of the things I noticed, you talk about being in this middle ground. I noticed that you are hobnobbing with corporate publishers. You're not so fiercely independent that like it's just, you're just talking to some rep in a dusty back room at Book Consortium or something. Like, I see you're rubbing elbows with some of the big players here. Before we start breaking down the publishing process, though, why don't you give us the Clash Genesis story, and your personal intro into publishing?
It's a combination of things. And I remember you mentioned Bizarro. I was kind of going through an existential crisis as a writer, and I just, I knew I was good at editing. I knew I had I wanted to get out there. I was very into Bizarro at the time, but I felt kind of out of fuel and burnout, and I wrote a book under a pen name as a joke. It's called Kirk Cameron and the Crocoduck of Chaos Magic, and it went viral. And it was
It just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it went viral. Vice and all these Huffington Post at the time. It's like 2014, and they covered it, and I was like, this is pretty awesome. Like it just gave me, not just necessarily because it was funny, because it's like when you're a pen name, it's you, but not you. So you kind of see it as another person. I'm like, I'm good at editing. I'm seeing this industry that there's really a lack of middle ground to take risks. Like I could just see that. I was very inspired. An indie who really inspired me, kind of the only indie I knew for a while, was Akashic Books with Johnny Temple. I was very inspired by what he was doing, even though I'm more of a horror guy than noir. I just loved Johnny, a fellow musician. I was really inspired by him and Kaylee Jones. Very into Eraserhead, and Bizarro. So that was kind of like, I'm like, there's got to be a middle here. And I kind of learned a little bit about distribution, and I knew that would take a long time. But it was a weird combo of the Crocoduck book, seeing I was good at editing, that I was probably even a little bit of better editor than my writing. I feel like I've caught up to my editing skills as a writer, but it's taken a long time. But I'm just good at helping others more than myself when it comes to writing. So, and then just kind of Clash kind of emerged of trial and error. I would say 2017, we really got kind of cooking, and a vision of like, okay, we want to eventually get distribution. You got incorporated and all that. We tried different things. Some of it worked,
That
some of it
happened. I mean, were you
different.
capitalized? I mean, what does this mean when you open Clash? Are we talking about in your apartment? Are we talking about like, I
It
mean,
was a,
were you
it was col-
capitalized?
it was a collective with this guy Jamie Corellis. It was like it was originally called That Lit Site. And then Jamie kind of went more into film. He was technically the founder of Clash, and he went into film. And I was like, hey man, I'm really into books, and I just kind of, said I'm gonna do the book side of this, and then just, I just kept going. And then all of a sudden, and it was like 2021. We kind of had 2 hit books in a month. It was 2021 was kind of that real breakthrough year for us, and I think I would say
So
to
for the
people, yeah,
listeners, I want to disambiguate on everything because one thing I
yeah,
learned is people, you got to give them context. So when we talk about a hit, I use the number 20,000 with Soft Skull, which was kind of grew up with Akashic, about the same sort of size publisher, similar amount of infrastructure and so forth. When we talk about an indie hit, like I always think about 90s records, that meant like 10,000 units or something like that. What are we talking about with Clash books? Just to give us context, if you'll
well,
tell us.
before distribution, like, I mean, that's the thing, and I'm very big on like distribution. I think it
Yeah,
it
that's
really
pretty
you need.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I will say just this on a side note. People ask, because I'm a musician, they're like, "Oh, would you quit if the band, goes big?" And no, I wouldn't. I would only quit if we didn't have any distribution, because I can't go through that again where it's just too much of a slog. I really see it as a
Yeah.
team effort. But before distribution, I would say 5,000 is like amazing, or even
That is
3,000, like
no, hey,
paperback. Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
5,000 is that's more
5,000.
than that's like 98% of
Yeah.
commercially
So
Penguin,
we had a book too that, as when we got distribution that did pass 20,000, that was a big hit for us. But yeah, I mean, it was like we had two kind of hit books come out in 1 month. We got accepted by consortium, so we went through that like 2015 to 2017 was just figuring out what the hell we were doing, who was going to be in charge of what and how to do it. Those were kind of the proto-punk years, so to speak. And then 2017 was like, all right, let's make this official and do this, accept books. I self-published some stuff under Class, just using me as a guinea pig. I mean, it was really a goal of, I've always been a person of just like, let's try things with a late goal in mind. I've been very like, I'm a 5 years plan kind of guy. Like, we're not going to be killing it that first
see,
year
that's
or
so
two or three.
refreshing. That's
It's
refreshing because we live in a
so
world now where it's about the quarterly profit, and
yeah, no,
I mean, you've got to have an end
and I'm
game.
and I'm going through that now. I mean, it was like 2016. It was like, okay, let's just figure out a way to survive and be profitable by like 2020, 2021. And then it was like, okay, we got that break in 2021. We had two hit books. We had Daryl, which is a book I highly recommend by Jackie S. And it was a great example of why Class is here. It was a book about a cuckold, and it's first person. It's very, in the cuckold, he's just endearing but pathetic, and you're like, I can't look away. I mean, the opening chapter, I'll never forget. I read this opening chapter, and it's this guy talking about his great fantasy is for LeBron James to hook up with his wife, and I'm like, I'm in. But that's the kind of book that would, even though it's such a great book, scares big five people away. It just scares them away. And give me one sec here.
Look,
And
anything that sells less than 50,000 copies at this point
yeah, no, I
scares.
mean, and so it was like we did that, and we did a book about ska, and they both came out in May, and it was just like, oh shit, like these are
In
like
defense of
selling stuff
ska, yeah,
in defense
yeah,
of ska.
that was on my radar.
Yeah,
I don't know enough about ska. We almost had him on the
well, I don't
podcast, but I'm like,
I don't
I don't
like
know.
ska. That's
No.
the funny thing. I really don't like the genre at all. And I was like, what if this guy can convince me that this genre that I really, really don't like, I mean, you gotta understand, I'm a goth grunge musician. I don't like happy anything.
Hey, I didn't like the Clash back in
Yeah,
the early
that's
'80s because I
fair.
thought they were a ska band. They've
Yeah, I
grown
mean,
on me, but I'm like, that's not
yeah.
punk rock.
I just, so it was like, yeah, I was like, ska and cuckolds, here we come, and, horror and literary fiction, and just, we didn't like, oh, this is just what Class does. Instead, we're like, let's just publish what we like, because I read all over the place. I am proud to be like, yeah, I like everything, and we try different things.
So what's
And
interesting, sorry to interrupt, but what's interesting about all of this is that, and we're going to get deep into this, as a niche publisher, you have to try to think outside the box in terms of growing readership, because as you know, literary fiction, the audience is basically just college educated white women 35 to dead. That's it. I mean, publishing doesn't
that is
really
correct.
even,
That
they
is
don't even
absolutely
really
correct.
try. They don't even really try, despite all the wonderful diversity in our list from writers of color and so forth now. I mean, you look at the list and it's more diverse than ever, and that's a wonderful thing. The audience, not so much. So we're going to get deep into that. But since you wear all the hats, what I'd like to do, uh, just for the sake of being cogent, is I want to go through the entire publishing process with you. Since you wear all the hats, I know you'll have all the answers of me. So we're just going to, I've got them bullet pointed, and we're going to go through, and this is going to be an education, because as well as I, there's a million people out there that dream of publishing a book. More people dream of publishing a book than actually writing one, I think, because so
Yeah,
many people want to
it's
occupy
true.
the space of writer, because it's so romantic, because they haven't seen the reality, which is
I think
when your
you're a fool.
PUD bill comes in a pink
If that's
envelope
your
every month. You know what I
if
mean?
if that's your goal, man, you're gonna be in
Yeah.
for some
May I
hard.
suggest recycling cans?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so let's start with negotiations, submissions.
yeah.
Where do your submissions come from?
So I like a nice mix. So I mean, a big part of Clash, kind of get back to the origin, was what would I like as a writer? And that was a big inspiration, for me. And though I don't get to do it perfectly, we basically keep submissions open. which I think I don't send rejections, but everybody's got to get it because it's like I would go crazy about having to hit some deadline when I'm working. I got a job, I got this or that. Like I can't always just hit your little like 2 week window. So that was a big part of us. I would say a majority would be open submissions. And I also felt that because of how risk averse publishing was gone, I would look for writers that didn't have agents, that was
Right, that
okay.
was my next question. What percentage of these people are unagented?
And
And look,
now
and when you're gonna
it's a
draw a
mixed.
one to $5,000 advance, I mean, wha
Yeah.
you're looking at, you just gotta learn a few things. That's what I've learned. I think at this point could be my own agent. I've seen so many deal memos. I mean, when you include the foreign
Yeah,
rights deals and stuff like that, I've probably done 30
definitely.
deals. It's like, make sure there's some elevator clause, some sales
Yeah,
thresholds, you know what I mean? Like, fight for a little publicity support, get what you can get, and don't give away 15%. But like that gets dicier when you're dealing with, contracts that look more like Disney contracts. Um, okay, so you're getting mostly unsolicited submissions. Now, how it works in corporate publishing now, particularly more than ever, is that you, as the acquiring editor, fall in love with the book. Now, I want to know where it goes for you because in corporate publishing now, what happens immediately is the acquiring editor has to go to
yes.
editorial board, and you know what
I
happens with
and
consensus.
I'm gonna say straight up, this is what I don't like about big publishing, is they're
It's a big
treating
anything. Yeah,
look, and friends, I am friends with Big 5 editors. I like them, they're my peers, okay? Especially in the horror. Like, I would say the horror, Big 5 editors are very good, and they're kind of less caught up in the bullshit, but it's still there. Um, I don't like that, and I had a writer go through this, that basically trying to get a Big 5 press book to go through is like applying for a bank loan because we had to get a loan to, fund Clash. I think it was like, 2022 or 2023. We're like, damn, we got to do a huge print run. We need a loan. And I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm probably gonna have to go through that too. I think that's just a little too corporate for me.
art has
It's
never benefited from consensus. Nothing
I
benefits from it. Whenever the decision becomes down to a group, I mean, look at it this way. Your boss is the acquiring editor, and he's like, I really like this book, but I have some reservations. And you
I,
show it to
I
your
am I am proud that, I won't say the editor, but one of the editors I'm friendly with, I feel like we've helped them out, because we're showing, hey, Class, though they're not huge sellers, anything outside of the Big 5 that's selling decently, that's doing a risk, they're like, oh, look, if they're doing it, look what we can do. So I feel like we've actually helped the ecosystem try to be a little more risky in the Big 5. I feel like they can look at us, especially in the horror world, for sure. A book like Meat Bees, but for me, it's each year I feel like I do lose a little, a not autonomy, because I'm great. I have a great situation with Consortium. They pretty much they're gonna do what we publish.
Okay, so people that know, Consortium is a sort of
We're
a
great.
it's a kind of an umbrella distribution company that handles
Yeah,
lots of indies, whereas most big publishers have their own, like Penguin Random House, Hachette, they have their own distribution built in. Consortium is this envelope that sort of distributes lots of
yeah. There's some
yeah.
great presses there as well, and a new press that started Creatures, very good. You have Feminist Press. Some great like poetry presses like Black Ocean. You have the awesome nonfiction press. Oh God, they're my buddies, and I'm literally forgetting their name, and now I feel shitty about that.
That's all right.
Feral House.
Okay.
So you have a great variety of books. Um, so I like it. I like I love them as a distributor because we keep our autonomy, but they can help us out. They give us suggestions, and we get into bookstores. I mean, we have a very, I will say, saying it out loud feels very unpunk, but our biggest buyer is Barnes and Nobles, and that's a beautiful thing for an indie press to say, and that's very rare, by the way.
Mhm.
But with them, I think of them now. I know kind of what works best with them, and that's playing a role in my decisions this year. So each year there is a little march each year to be a little more corporate right. Like I will be the honest to say that. It is tough to keep that pure punk rock feeling. So you kind of have to pick your battles because you want to stay. I say there's two, rules. There's the first rule is there's more important things than book sales, and the second rule is you have to stay in business, and those have to be aligned with each other. We're not a nonprofit. We
Yeah, well,
are
the
here
way
to
that used to
sell
work in the
books.
20th century paradigm was you had
So
your front
close the poll.
list, your splashy titles, and then you had what was called the mid list. These were often, the literary fiction titles. I mean, many of the staples of the 20th century literary canon were
Yeah,
mid-list authors. I mean, if you look at
absolutely.
you're not going to find John Dos Passos on the New York Times bestseller list in 1935. So how that worked was that you had your front list, and editors
Yes.
could actually champion a book that they knew may not be profitable, but they believed in the author. And this happened with
Yes.
John Steinbeck. This happened with Cormac McCarthy. His first
Definitely.
4 or 5 books were commercial
Cormac, for
failures.
sure.
That used to be the model. We're gonna the asset here was the author, the person that was going to continue
Yes.
to produce work. Well, but what's happened in recent decades, and I've seen it happen just since I got in the game in 2007, 2008, is that it is becoming a title-driven market. And so now it's all about framing
Yes.
that title, and we're not looking at the author as assets. That's one more thing we can
I
talk
agree
about,
completely.
but
Yes.
I'm
I mean,
sidetracking
yeah.
us again.
Okay.
So is there any negotiation? You decide you like a book. You make an offer, and it's like, "This is
Yeah,
what
I
we can
mean,
offer you."
you
Is
know,
there
um, I will talk to Lisa as well. We had a baby, literally, we're a true mom and pop press, to the boat, we're the owners. And,
adorable kid too.
thank you.
That's another thing I
Remy is the
enjoy about
best.
following you. Yeah.
Yes, Remy is the best. And, so we're a mom and pop. I had to kind of be a one-man band for a little bit. I have my managing editor, who I must give the greatest shout out to, Caitlin, who is the best, our managing editor. But I, made most of the acquiring decisions, though, trying to make sure that Lisa would be excited about at least certain books, to get her involved. And I know her taste, so I kind of would pick for her as well. The big thing, and this was made, I would say inspired a little by Acosta, is we'll do some advances, but they're not big. You're going to get a pretty much a 50-50 royalty split. That's how I do it. And that
For
some people say
perspective, I get
that's
8.5% on a
yeah,
paperback and
but you're getting a
50% on a
very nice advance, I would imagine, from the Big Five.
yes, but
Yeah. So that's
that
and
is
that's it.
that paradigm is in danger. Let me
Yeah,
just
no,
put it
I
that way.
think
I've been
so.
on the
I think
gravy train for over a
yeah,
decade, and just
yeah.
irregardless of my sales track record, that
Look,
paradigm is in danger
I
right now.
I'm very, like, to me, to get published, I'll just wear both hats for a second, because we're talking about publishing and all that. Like, for me, I love a lot of the Big Five people. Like, there's some that I love and I'd love to work with. I don't need the validation, though, as a writer. I don't care. I frankly don't care. I trust my own judgment and I trust my agent's judgment. For me, with the Big Five, it's just a game of resources. I would like, and there's certain ones that I love and I would love to work with, and it would just be nice. But it's the resources. That's what I want from a Big Five, and more, it's a game of resources. What's funny is I was an international relations major. I was planning to work for the State Department, and I overslept a terrorist
I'm
attack.
sorry for laughing,
Yeah,
dude, but like
I know
I
people are
just
like, "What?"
looking at you, just
Yeah,
looking at you, I'm like, yeah,
nah,
nah, good luck with that.
yeah. So, I overslept a terrorist attack in London. I was doing a study abroad thing, and I was like, this is not what I want to do with my life. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot through that and I've kind of had a political mindset where I'm like, yeah, this is a not a battle of resources, but, there are resources I will never have that the
And
Big
let's
Five
stop
have.
for a moment and talk
Yeah.
about these, because this is why people come to me all the time, what do you think of self-publishing? And I'm like, that's the first word that comes out of my mouth, resources. I mean, distribution being one, but
Yeah.
people have no idea how many editorial resources you get with a publisher. And we're
Yeah.
going to get into how much you have to offer and how
And
many
it's
hats you have to wear. But you have
and it's
substantive
value.
editors, copy
Yeah.
editing,
Yes.
fact checking. You have all these things.
Yes.
How many of those? So you now, back to put it into Clash land. You've now acquired this book. Now we move on to editorial. There's waves
Yeah.
of editorial. There's substantive, then there's copy and line editing.
And I will say
fact
yes, and it depends. It depends. I have done, which, you don't really have big 5 editors do. If there's something I really think is special about the book, but it's not there yet, and I'll be honest, I'm doing this less each year because I don't have the time and energy, but I have done extensive content edits along with line edits if needed, if I really believe there's something special there. And I'm like, you know what? To not publish this book is going to haunt me, and it's 2 or 3 drafts away, but I'm going to do those edits with this writer, and we're going to go through it. And I've done that. There are
God
other
love
times
ya. God
and
love ya.
there's other times where I'm like, listen, do no harm. This book is good to go. We need we need basically a light line edit and a copy edit. That happens too. And I think age plays a role. I think writers who are really established and have been around, they don't need it as much. It's very rare. It's very, writer over 50 or even in their 40s who've been published a few times, they don't need those hand-holding edits. But I publish a lot of young writers. Clash is a youthful press in a lot of ways. We publish people in their 20s. Do they need edits? A lot of times, yes. And I think that is a big service Clash is doing. I mean, we've had 2 writers, a great example, Eric LaRocca, he was our 20,000, paperback sales, guy. And, he's now with Tim O'Connell at Simon & Schuster. But, we were the first press. We're like, we're going to edit the fuck out of you, okay? We're going to make it that you get better because you're going to go to I'm like, Eric's going to the Big 5. This is only a matter of time. And it was heartbreaking a little bit to be like, I wanted to do 2 more books with him. And I'm like, Simon & Schuster locked him down. And I'm super happy, for him, but it's tough. It's tough. Another one, Madeline Cash, she did Earth Angel, sold, I think, like over 5,000 copies for a debut collection. Now with FSG, we have another guy who's going to be with Simon & Schuster. You know what I mean? And then I think we have another writer who's going to get a Big 5. I joke that I'm a big sports guy if people follow me enough. And I don't know if you know sports at all, Jonathan, but
Very, very well. In fact, my next guest is Jim Lampley, the HBO boxing analyst.
Oh, shit.
So,
cool.
yeah, we're going to preview Crawford Canelo.
Nice.
And
so I use this analogy, even though one's retired and now one's in college, but if I have to think of myself as like a coach, I would like to think of myself as a college coach, like a Nick Saban, who, it's going to really teach you how to be a pro. And then you can go to somebody like Bill Belichick or somebody in the pros. I guess now, he's back in college, but you know what I mean? And I'm okay with being a college coach. Like, I don't want to be bought out by a Big 5. I'm happy, now to keep the analogy going with nil, you can make money, as a college athlete. So I'm okay. I mean, royalties are royalties. I'm collecting half of those, as long as we're selling books and you're like, okay, I want to go to the Big 5 now, and writers can come back too. But I get it. I would be a hypocrite. I'd literally, on my sub list, I think there's 2 indies and the rest are Big 5, So it's tough because you love working with certain writers and like they get really successful, you'll never be able to work with them again. And that's the kind of paradox, you get this bond, you love working with them. You're like, man, we could do 2 more books. And then the Big 5 come and go, hey, great job. Let's take this from here. And, I talked to 2 Big 5 guys about it when I did a panel and we're waiting in the green room. I talked to one and I'm like, yeah, you got my bestseller, man. What can I do? Take good care of him. I think he's, the next, Clive Barker, you got a good thing here. Do good by him. I mean, I'm just kind of keeping it real. with the
Well, and
CEOs.
even
Yeah.
in losing them, it's still paying dividends for you because you
Oh,
get to
yeah,
say,
no.
like, I mean, we launched this person. That's all right. You have your place
Yeah.
in this larger ecosystem as
We're
the
a
people that
stepping
break the
stone.
talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm
there's
happy to be
nothing
a stepping stone.
no
Yeah.
shame in that at all. So
Yeah. No.
now you have edited it sounds like, some substantive, mostly copy editing,
Yeah,
my
we have 2 copy editors. We do, rounds and yeah, I mean, we make sure we want this to be as we wanna have a big 5 type product,
right,
so
my
to
least
speak.
favorite people in the world, and I wanna know how deep you guys go on this, are fact checkers. I don't know how they live with themselves. These people are insane. Like, they go through one of my 500-page novels, and they'll say, like, I don't know, well, you said that October 17th, 1851 was a Tuesday. Actually, that was a Thursday, which means in 2023, when you say Jack goes to the doctor appointment on a Wednesday, I'm like, how the fuck did you figure that out? Why did you figure that out? Like,
We
is
don't go to
anybody
that
gonna get
extent.
that? I did
Yeah,
have a horse.
we have to pick our battles, we wanna make sure every sentence is clean, edited. Are we gonna like nitpick something like that? No. You can save that for the big fight. We have to pick our battles,
You do
If we're
have to
doing
make sure it's like, I once had a horse trotting instead of cantering or whatever, and boy, I heard about it from every horse lady in
Yeah, no,
America.
no, no. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Those kind of edits, yes. You're looking to make sure it all feels real. We don't do that much nonfiction, I mean, nonfiction is where
Yeah.
that's where you go into fact checking.
I don't
But
even know.
for fiction, it's kind of common sense, but you only have so much resources either. So you have an editor, you have 2 editors, and then 2 copy editors, and that's pretty good. I mean, most micro presses, it's like 1 guy or a one and a half. So you pick your battles with that.
Yeah. So, like, with a corporate publisher, like, they have so much infrastructure that, like, I've
Yeah,
gotten, like, a 20-page style guide before where it's like, we're gonna italicize this word throughout, or we're going to you know what I mean? There's just so much nip and tuck work that I don't really know. I admire, professionalism and perfectionism, but I don't even know how much of that's gonna translate to the reader anyway,
yeah,
beyond
no,
the cantering versus trotting stuff.
yeah.
I don't know who I mean, if you got nothing better to do, look at an 1847 calendar, make sure it's a Tuesday or Wednesday, dude.
And
I don't fucking care if you
I
remember.
remember, and there's still gonna be stuff that gets through as, I remember one of my favorite writers, I won't say the book, but, somebody made, a comment on the fact checking and because it was a book that placed at 65 and it was a big 5 book. So, you know what I mean? Even the big 5 mess up on this stuff. I mean, um,
What's interesting
I
is that
yeah,
movies get away with it all the time. You watch something
yeah,
like Gangs of New York, and as somebody who had to study 5 points for Small World and who knows a lot about the
well,
history of 5, you're like, "This is
yeah,
just full of anachronisms." Like, they
you,
wouldn't be using
yeah,
pewter, or they wouldn't whatever. I'm just throwing
yeah.
examples. I don't understand how movies can get away with these, like, continuity and
I
these
think the
gaps.
audience, you have readers will enjoy commenting about mistakes. We'll get them. We'll get those books here and there. We'll get a guy, hey, what were you guys doing? I mean, you have to have a very tough skin because you're not going to be perfect, especially in the small press. You're going to do the best you can do, but yeah, you'll get people who will comment about, hey, you missed this or that, and you just have to go. We'll try to be better next time, and that's really all you can do.
So briefly now, let's move into production. Okay, now
Yeah.
you've gotten through the editorial, but production. This one's probably a little briefer. I mean, you've got a printer you
Mhm.
use, you ship the book
Yeah.
off, you put it in order. Tell me a little bit about how that works. How do you
Well, I
decide what your
mean,
print run's going to be, et cetera, et cetera?
it can be a mix. We have a nice deal, to be honest, with Ingram and Consortium. So you can sometimes do a nice, print to order could be the same as, printing 1,000 copies. So it depends on the book. We had one book where we printed 12,000 copies. It really fluctuates with sales expectations, timelines. So, we do a mix of print to order and print runs. It really, just depends. It could be 1,500 for a first print run, 2,000, 3,000. We've done 5,000. It just depends,
And it's a really big decision because you can run into supply chain issues and things like that. If a
Yes.
book, if you do a 1,500 print run and all of a sudden the book, whatever, it gets a, some influencer Instagrams about it or something. You could find yourself where like, fuck, we got to do another print run fast. Can we even turn
Yeah.
this over in time? And
Yeah, and we've had to do that. We had The Man Who Saw Seconds, it was a great surprise for us. It won what's the award? Give me a sec. The Locus Award, and that was a great, a great example of just follow your muse. I wasn't like, just on a side note, everybody likes to think, oh, they know what will be a hit, and I just love this
nobody
writer.
fucking knows, man. They're
Nobody
trying to catch,
knows.
and
You
it's,
could
but
have I knew with Eric's book, Eric LaRocca's Darkness, I'm like, this just feels like the second coming of Clive Barker. And this guy has built a fan base through the micro press scene. This, I think, is going to do very well. I think this is
right,
him
you
going to
can
that.
judge on an individual
Yeah,
basis, but as a
but
market,
it's
moving the needle
nah,
as a
yeah.
market, you don't know.
I mean, I love to say, oh yeah, I knew, this book was going to sell 10,000. I just was like, hey, this is a smart man's thriller. I love the language. I love this writer. This is just a great book. And I will get to the more important thing. Does the distributor get behind it? That's the huge thing.
This is what I'm struggling with. This is the main thing, because part of me is just
That's
because,
the
I
big
grew up
one.
in punk bands and I want to get back to my indie roots in a way because, and I'll talk a bit about my disillusionment later, but like,
Yeah,
distribution is the main thing. Like
yeah,
I've built a good audience, right? But I
yeah.
still have to make sure my publisher can distribute the books, get them on the shelves, right? Even if they
Yes.
can't do anything else in the way of publicity and marketing, I have an audience that I've built over 9, 10 books that's going to find that book as long as it can stay in stock. And that is easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much about, I mean, Man Who Saw Seconds. That's the book I'm talking about. And our distributors, they fell in love with this book. They just fell in love with it. And it was not, I would say the class audience, the kind of fan base we've built, it's younger women, I would say, in their 20s who like kind of transgressive stuff. You have a lot of, queer readers. You have a lot, people of color. I mean, and you have, young people, I would say.
All audiences that commercial publishing has no idea how
Yes,
to
we
target or market
definitely,
to.
that has been kind of the base of class. We
So how do
definitely,
you do it? That's my next question, and that's the next part of the
so,
process is publicity and marketing. How do you
yeah,
infiltrate these markets?
I don't freaking know, to be honest with you. I just put books. I mean, we do social media. We have fun with it. I do think it's been a weird combo of us being us and our distributor doing a good job. And I just think, we're reaching the bookstore people. We're on NetGalley now. We definitely have, had some books pop a little bit on NetGalley. We do the TikTok thing. I think TikTok can actually sell some books to young people. We work with the bloggers. We definitely let them know. I think the book bloggers, I would say I feel like it's three things. You have like librarians, book bloggers, the passionate people about books, and the distributor. And I think it really comes down to those three and, word of mouth. I mean, there's some stuff that I wish I could say, oh, yeah, this is how we got young people to like our books. We just published books that we liked and word spread. Oh, I like Class. And certain books struck chords with certain readers,
And that in turn
That's all it
leads you,
is.
then you sort of reverse engineer that and see, where are these readers coming from? Oh, they're reading this book blog or that book blog, or they're interacting on this social network, so you're sort of like
Yeah.
following the product.
Yeah. I mean, that's really it. And you see what works and what doesn't. I mean, I would say we have 4 things that we see are pretty solid. We know we do it in this, and we take some gambles. Like a great example, like you'll have certain books that you just kind of expecting it to do well. Now, we definitely have a hot hand when it comes to horror. I will be the first to say that. I think because honestly, and I want to say before I say this, I think Nightfire, one of the best presses in the game. I love Saga and Tim O'Connell. I think Run For It's doing a great job. But I think the big 5 outs, and there's others, I think though there's a less passion for horror with the higher ups into the big 5. They just look down on it. And that I think gave us a path to go, hey, we love this shit. we're gonna just sing its praises. We're gonna look for horror with really great style because that's what we want to read. That was kind of what I was looking for. I'm like, hey, I'm a literary guy. I like good literary fiction, but I also really like plot and story. So for us, it was kind of like, let's try to find the best of those both worlds when it came to horror. Now, a great example in a book I'm going to sing its praises because we just passed 1,000 and we got a small national order is Little Lazarus. And this is a great example of where we pick our battle.
It's a great title.
I think it's my personal favorite book for class. I shouldn't say that, but it made me cry the most. So we'll leave it at that, because the ending wrecked me in the way a great opera should. And this is not the most marketable book. It is a book about two clairvoyant turtles. You know what I mean? Already I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the...
I love it. I mean, Tom Robbins could have written that book and sold 3 million copies in 1983.
It's existentialist. It's moving around. It doesn't really have a plot, but this book was a beautiful work of art. I'll be honest, we came this close to getting it into Paris Review. I can say that now. It came very close, so that would have been huge for us because it's serious literary fiction. The book is huge in Italy. But man, I had to really hustle hard with the distributor and other people to get people behind it because it's not Meat Bees, which, once you see the cover, you're like, this fucks me up, but I'm intrigued. You're like,
Snakes on the Plane probably did $50 million. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I'm saying. So there's books that are going to be easier sells, but I don't want to just publish horror. Okay, I love horror. It's my favorite genre. It's where my heart is. It's what I write. But I love good literary fiction. I love, dark femme literary fiction. But so a book like Little Lazarus, there's an extra good feeling when you can see that breakthrough because I know how I've had books that I've loved that I couldn't get my distributor behind that were challenging literary fiction, and I know I've let the writer down, and it's heartbreaking. You have to wear that. You got to take some of the blame. I didn't do my job. My job is to get people excited about a writer's book and to get bookstores into it and librarians, and you feel like shit when you don't do your job.
But come on, you can only do so much. And
no, I get it. But it's still, look, the buck stops here. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, it's on me to facilitate that. That is why I'm getting a percentage of the money, not just editing. But that's part of it. And look, I've learned too, now there are books. I sent a rejection today to a writer that I think is one of the best writers I've ever worked with. Because I know I couldn't connect to it. And I knew I couldn't really sell it well. And that combination of those two things, and I'm like, I know this is intellectually, at the end of the day, I got to follow my heart. But I'm like, if my heart's not in it and I don't think I can sell it, it's like, look, we did a cookbook. My heart was in it because I liked animals. But it's like, that's not what you expect from Clash. But I'm like, I can sell this, this is going to sell. And this is going to help pay for me to take a risk on a crazy book that I want to do that might not sell.
See,
so it's a balance.
Now you're talking about the old 20th century model of publishing that made sense.
I mean, and a good shout out to Kaylee Jones, whose, father is James Jones. And I believe he worked with, what's the editor's name? Merkins or something. The editor,
Maxwell Perkins.
Maxwell Perkins.
Yeah,
thank you.
He's a giant. And James Jones, of course, wrote From Here to Eternity, right?
Yes,
James
writer.
Jones
But Kaylee's a huge influence on me. There's a great example. Me and Kaylee, you look at our tastes, probably on the other side of the spectrums. Kaylee's very much about literary fiction, especially like women in their 50s, it's very quiet, it's very serious. That's not really what you're seeing from Class books. But we both were kindred spirits in that we're like, hey, corporate publishing is not doing its job anymore. We both commiserated about that. And I think, her with her imprint with Akashic, kind of representing, and she had one book that really blew up, because there was an audience that weren't really being reached, and for me, it was more transgressive, risky books, but it's like we're both, even though we're representing very different books, though did represent the book Kaylee came to me that I loved, um, but I just using as an example, like we're both like, yeah, something's off here. There's something off. It's getting a little too corporate,
And
in
and
publishing.
and I have to stop you right now just because and I'm gonna earmark where we're at here, which is that we're at publicity and marketing as we go down through the process. But, as we go through this, we're gonna have to address some of the big questions and challenges facing publishing, both indie and corporate here. And I think right now the biggest problem with corporate publishing, and it's changing very fast, is that it's pretty much owned by equity firms now. I mean, we're talking about bean counters, okay? People who have no interest in reading books, they read spreadsheets. They don't want to play the long game. They don't want to brand authors. They just view books as data. Sort of like Spotify and the streaming services. They want to gut the infrastructure, the whole ecosystem. That bullshit they sold to the public about streaming was going to be some great democratizer of music, some amazing user experience. Well, it turns out it's just platform capitalism to them,
Yeah.
and it's financially
Yeah. No,
engineered
I
for
get it.
profit and nothing more. There's just no love or no regard for the artist. The problem is these are the people that are issuing the mandates now. They're looking at a spreadsheet and they don't realize 35,000 copies of a literary fiction title is really good. They're like, you got to do better. And so, like, what I'm running into, and one of the things that is making me contemplate leaving corporate publishing right now, is that everybody I talk to, the reps, the agents, the editors, there's this sort of suffocating feeling of anxiety and depression and nervousness, like, because these mandates are coming down. I mean, editors are under pressure to acquire AI content, and they're like, these people
Yeah.
didn't, go to
No. Yeah.
university and get an
They're good
English
people.
degree.
These are good yeah, the
Like,
editors.
these are
The
book
editors,
people,
I
right?
know them, and they're
Yeah,
all because
and
they're
they're
passionate
fucking
about books.
depressed, and they're
Yes.
depressed, and they're
I
anxious,
do see it.
and so I'm to the
I do
point where
see
it's
it.
like, "Fuck, I don't know if I wanna publish in that environment because it's fucking morbid, you know? I'd rather be with somebody who's excited about bringing books into the world." I mean, I realize there's a business end to this, but, like, I I just it's just this is where I see an opening for the indies. I mean, as you said, you
I
have
do.
your yeah,
Yeah.
you're sort of niche marketing. I know it's not the only thing you do, but you're sort of niche marketing of horror titles because you saw that corporate publishing was not doing very well with them, and they weren't that interested in. What's happening now is corporate publishing is not very interested in literary fiction,
Yes.
particularly, and I had one editor who I won't name say it out loud recently on a submission who loved my book, who said, "I love it. I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to take it to editorial, but I'm going to warn you in advance. Most of my colleagues are not interested in a book by a white guy about a white guy of a certain age." Okay. So I was just
Yeah.
glad he said it
No,
out
yeah.
loud because you get a lot of rejections and there's not, I just didn't connect with it. That's the boilerplate sort of like polite answer. But I'm like, okay, I get it. Diversity is big right now. And I don't, geez, middle-aged white guys, we've had our day for, whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
thousands of years. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
Don't misconstrue. I'm not the victimized white guy here. I'm just saying
Yeah.
this is a reality of publishing. And so I'm running into more and more people, my contemporaries, who are literary fiction writers who have been around as long as mine, sometimes longer, as long as me. People have been around for 20 years. They've got good sales tracks. They're always marginally profitable. But nobody wants their books anymore because the mandates come down like, we got to have six-figure sales figure here. I don't care. I don't know anything these guys are like, I don't know literary fiction from romance. Just give me something that says it sold 105,000 copies. And so, like, it puts these editors and these people that are passionate book people in this terrible position.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
I
just
see
feel
it.
it overwhelming. So I just feel like there could, if corporate publishing doesn't screw their head on, they're just going to lose literary fiction. And what does that mean for them? Maybe not
I
there a lot of sales, but
I
you
don't think
lose
they're gonna
legacy.
care.
You lose
Well,
legacy.
you know what? Yeah, I
Backlists
mean,
matter. Backlisting matters.
no. I think it's I think there's a thing going on here where I think actually the people who get into publishing, and this is a good and bad thing, I guess, their love is literary fiction. I have noticed that in the big five, they are working in this to do to do literary fiction, and a lot of agents. It is the literary fiction, and then if you look into Barnes and Nobles,
I'd
that
say
is
less with agents and more with editors.
more with editors. They
Agents,
really,
they have to sell it. They have to know, can I
yeah,
sell this?
yeah, yeah, I would agree. I mean, I've noticed some, but yeah, no, the editors, they're, and look at me. I mean, it's the ones. It's the little Lazarus. That's the one that, like, that's the wit. Sell, get it. That sales is as feels as good as the 20,000 sales of Eric's. I'm just keeping it honest. I love Eric. He's one of my favorite writers, but it's like getting that 1,000 for that book that I know is a tough sell for American audiences. That feels very gratifying because I know the upscale battle. I had a book that was amazing called, I'm just gonna say it because he doesn't give a shit about, actually I should. So but it was a great book, and it was literary fiction, and we couldn't crack 1,000. We couldn't crack 1,000, and it's a writer who has sold well, and it's an amazing book. It was a white dude working class
Well,
fiction book.
I just crossed Clash off my list. Thank you for that intel. No, just joking.
No, I mean, it's a
But,
great book, but it was just not, for whatever reason, we are not able, Clash is not able to get those kind of books to pop right now. For example, where if,
why is that? Why do you suppose that is? Let's deconstruct this a little bit.
I think people want class for certain things. I think they're looking for class to push the envelope. I think they are looking for diversity to a degree. I don't think that's everything. I think they're looking for darkness. I think comedy, because the book was a comedy and it was working class. I think a book about a job book was maybe not the greatest thing that our readers want to do. I think they want to escape their
So
job.
this is a matter of your brand sort of working against you a little bit.
I think so. I think, like,
More than the larger marketplace. More like they're not looking.
yeah, I think what the irony is, I think the big five are the best ones to do literary fiction because you need that hype for it.
I think they think that too, but now, as I said, the mandates are coming down, like where they're under. It's like, I'm going to use a sports analogy.
catch-22. Yeah.
Let me use a sports analogy. Sabermetrics, big baseball, right? I mean, if you're a baseball purist like me, clearly you hate it. 2 outcomes, strikeout or home run. It's the most boring game ever. The numbers may ultimately bear it out. I have to watch Cal Raleigh strike out and leave 7 runners on bases with less than 2 outs, like, routinely. But, every 6th time with the bases loaded, he hits a grand slam home run. So the metrics ultimately maybe bear it out. But what we're dealing with is a riverboat gambling paradigm here. So I feel like acquisitions are now going the way of, okay, we may strike out 9 times out of 10, but we're going to try to follow what we think is the trend and try to guarantee that we, as close as possible, that we can get that 1 home run, and then the other 9, whatever, they can just fall stillborn from the press. We're not going to give them any, you know what I mean? It's like an all or nothing proposition. It's a microcosm of late capitalism in general. I mean, it's just the gutting of the middle class and the culling of the lower class.
What's hard too is, you have these presses who are actually not thinking about the pure profit that, we have to kind of think about as a small business. So, but then they're getting defunded, which that plays a whole other role. It's tough. I mean, I think like, literary fiction, also there's a combination of, I think there's a lot going on with it, to be honest. I think people are wanting more of a hook to some degree too. I think readers just kind of want that. It's got to be really, I mean, I've told agents this. I said, listen, if you're going to send me literary fiction, it needs to be like Little Lazarus. I need to feel that this is so special that I don't care if I lose money. I have to just fall in love with it. And I think it's putting a high ceiling, to do. I mean, even for me as a guy who's, probably at the bottom rung of publishing, though we're getting higher up, I guess you could say. But it's like, even with me, I'm like, listen, if you're sending me literary fiction, it just has to be such a slam dunk. And yet it has to be and that's the problem. Like, and yet it, for some reason, the big five won't pick it up because I guess it has existentialist turtles. You know what I mean? It's like
That wasn't the case in the 1980s or the
yeah.
1990s. It
No,
wasn't that
no,
way.
no.
Yeah. No, I
And I
mean,
talked to people about this. It just has changed. I do think there is a huge corporate influence for profit. I mean, like, a press side, it's like, if I get a deal by an imprint I'm really would hope to be with, it's like, oh yeah, this is great, but I'm technically working for Fox News. You know what I mean? It's like it's very corporate owned, and it's the game of resources. Will they use the resources that you want? And it really is international relations to me. I mean, and I use this as an example. My thesis, I never ended up finishing it when I was Mr. International Relations. I was very fascinated by what was called the non-aligned movement, which was started by the Egyptian president. And this will go somewhere, I swear. And basically, he was like, listen, I don't want to be part of Russia and communism, and I don't want to be part of the Western capitalism either. I want my own autonomy. And that inspired me with publishing and to be with Consortium. And I told even the big five, when I talked to them, like, yeah, I don't think I'd want to join you guys, to be honest, because I would lose my autonomy. I want my autonomy. I want
that's
to
what every
fail.
artist wants. And
And
so
that's and
you're
that's
approaching
what
it like an artist, which makes you such a great
I am an
representative
artist
for it.
first.
Yes, yeah.
And I am an artist first. If you want to ask me, I would say I'm a musician, and I'm tied with this writer and publisher. I mean, I'm an artist. I'm an artist who happens to be good at editing. That's really it, and selling books. Those are my two skills. I can edit a book, and I can sell them to money people and book people. Those are my two skill sets. And I'm a good reader. I will take pride in seeing potential. That is kind of my superpower. I'm seeing what maybe the big five or an agents are missing out on. I go, no, no, no. I see something very special here. We just have to market it in the right way, and it can work out well. But yeah, it's lonely, I think, to be in that middle place. I think, I definitely feel that, because it's not like you have the big five fellow editors and all the marketing team. Like, I got to meet one of my favorite presses, and I met their marketing team, and I met everyone, and I'm like, man, this is great. I wish I had this, as a writer, I would love that. You have all these people focused on your book, where with class, it's like three main people, and we're all exhausted all the time. There's
Yeah,
not a
but you're
perfect.
totally all in.
Yes, for the most part, I would say so. I would say we're
It's
doing our
not work
best.
in, work out. It's like, we got to make
Yeah,
this work. And
yeah, yeah.
there's not to say that there's not passion behind every title, but if there's mandates coming down that you just need to publish numbers, books are going to be acquired that editors do not necessarily love. They just see as commercially viable products,
Yeah,
and they're being
and
forced into that corner.
yeah. You know what? Pay me enough money, I'll be happy to be that too with the big five. I'll be
Well,
honest.
yeah, now you're
I
talking like a guy with kids, so I feel you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a kid. I would not. It would be nice to go, hey, here's six figures. Let's not have to worry for a few, for a while, and just I can give my managing editor who kills herself a raise, with some of that advance money. So that's the thing. I mean, it's just resources. It's just
Yeah.
resources. I would like more. I don't want to. It's a combination of autonomy versus resources, and I think that's really publishing when you said and done. I think what you're getting at, it's like, what do I want more? And you might have to. I would say, do you want to, gamble and take a way less lower advance? But if the book does really well, you see that with a high royalty rate.
Well, in my case,
Yeah.
even if the royalty rate is the same, if my advance is not low, if they just print it and ship it, I've spent decades building an audience big enough that I'm gonna make money on the back end because if the advance is
for
small,
sure.
I'm gonna earn it even at 15 and 8.5% respectively for hardback and coverback. So now, underneath all of this has been such a fun conversation for me.
Yeah, this has
And
been
we're
cool.
running out of time, but like, this is the question, the crisis with readers that so I'm going to appeal to you as somebody who is on both sides, who's wearing all the publishing hats, but also is an artist, and also is just somebody culturally sort of tuned in. As I said, you're one of the cool kids. Let's talk about, In a world where a ham sandwich now costs $20, first of all, why is it so fucking hard to get people to spend $30 on a hardcover, $15 on a paperback? Like, I don't get it. You're getting a lot more value. It's going to take you 10 hours to, a movie costs that much and it's going to be over in, 94 minutes. And the other thing is how do we make books cool again? Because I remember a day when you went down to your cafe, and back then it wasn't a Starbucks, it was your neighborhood cafe, and you had a book on your waist. And you know what? That book was social currency. That book started conversations. Somebody behind you said, "No way, you're reading John Fante," who you see pictured behind me. I didn't know anybody read John Fante. I love everything Black Sparrow does. That conversation, you may get laid from that conversation. You know what I'm saying? Books were cool. Talk to me. What do we do?
no,
How do we make books cool again?
I think that actually is happening, to be honest with you. I think with the younger people, I do think so. Okay, I'm going to preface this. My heart is with music, I will say. But here's a great example. And I always joke about this. Publishing, I'm very optimistic on because music is so bad.
Exactly. Yes, I know it.
I'm going to share this. My guitar player texts me, "Hey, we finally got paid. We actually got music on a corporate airline. So when people are on the airline, they could listen to our song." He got $28. So I have to look.
Let me guess. 15, 25,000 downloads.
No, I don't know. It's just literally having them putting our music on the airline, that people could listen to, which, you're a corporate $1 billion industry. 1,128.88. So that's what I'm getting at. So it's like there actually are bookstores. There are Barnes and Nobles and indies. There's compared to the music industry, there's a thriving bookstore, librarians. There's actually an infrastructure in place.
Yes.
Now
there's still an ecosystem, though. They're whittling it down.
A great example, I would give a shout out to Volume Zero, which is the independent, which is the magazine for books of the month, and they've bought a lot of books, stories from Clash. And they throw cool parties. And they're like making books cool again. I would say Earth Angel, like, in the New York and the LA scene, which are kind of the trend-setting places, I definitely see that. I see that for sure. But then you also have people like in the country who are going to Barnes and Nobles buying Clash books. They go to the horror section and they might be in like Nebraska or something. And they're like, "Oh, cool. This looks rad." So I think it's there with the younger people. I definitely see. I don't look. I'm fine with ebooks. Whatever gets you reading, but I actually see where music, it's all just streaming. There's people actually liking real books and buying them and being cool. There's a whole joke about the performative male who just has books, who is just trying to get laid. And I'm sure there's plenty of guys out. And hey, performative males, pick a class book. That'll that might help. Pick a femcel class book. That'll get you laid. But I think actually books are fine. Maybe it's the musician in me because it's like dire. I do think it's shifting. I think the diversity part is great. I think there's going to have to be adaptions. I think it is. I will tell you, John, I think it is going to be hard for older white male literary fiction. It's going to be a tougher sell. It's just going to be.
God damn it, I'm going to be the last man standing. And
But if you have your audiences up, speak of a devil, we might have a little guest here. I think Remy just came in. Kid, here's Remy. So, Remy, do you like books?
Yeah.
See, there you go.
There we are. We're already making it cool again. Christoph, again, this has been a truly a
It's
pleasure.
been awesome.
I love that. I enjoyed an animated conversation. I got to blow off some steam. I got some great insight from you. He is Christoph Paul. He is the publisher at Clash Books. Talk to me briefly. Give a plug for the goth metal band.
Yeah, the Dionysus Effect. We actually fingers crossed, looks like we're going to have an EP out on October 31st for Halloween called Under Your Bed. So we're going to start doing some mixing right now. 5-song EP of kind of horror tinted goth rock. So I'm very excited about that. And I have a book coming out next year with Shortwave. I don't really have much book stuff to plug. I will say A book I think for this, I'm going to plug one class book, which is a literary horror book. I feel it fits the theme, is On Submission by Michael Seilinger, which is Scream with publishing.
I know
And
Michael. Yes.
oh
Okay.
yeah,
I
you know
yeah.
Michael.
Yeah.
So, and Remy likes Michael too. You like Michael? Yeah, you like
Oh,
Michael.
gosh.
So,
All right, Christoph, thank you so much
right,
for being our
Jonathan.
fresh face in hell. Send
Thank
Jason
you.
any relevant links and we'll put them in the Substack. And
want-
I will continue to
I
keep
want-
you on
I
my
want
radar, my
that.
friend. Go Clash
want
Books,
that.
go Indie Publishing.
All right, man. Great to talk to you.
I want